I saw you guys last week, we just really got a chance to start this idea of the Americans becoming an empire, how we have to tweak our definition of what manifest destiny is. But we do always have a problem. We're very late to this imperialism game. In fact, the Europeans have a 400-year head start on us. We need to be careful. We need to be strategic. But we are going to be really thrown into a situation where we have a new Spanish king that says he wants to recreate the once great Spanish empire. Alfonso XII comes to power and he says, I am going to reclaim everything that was once ours. Now, this right here is a picture of really the Spanish Empire at its absolute peak, where they control South America and Central America, up into North America. They have other holdings around the world. But really, ever since the late 1700s, early 1800s, they very much have been on the decline. They've lost a lot of their empire, their colonial holdings. So I want to just show you something first. What I do want to show you first is going to be where they stand into the early and then mid-1800s as far as what they still have. Now, the page that I do want to show you here is something that you've seen before. This is the world in 1822, where these are all different holdings of empires. Now, I do want to ask first. Spain is right here with this yellow color. What do they still have as far as colonies go? That's one thing. Jake, what do you see?
Well, we still have the Caribbean.
Okay. They still have some holdings within the Caribbean. They have Cuba, they have Puerto Rico, a couple of small islands. Good. What else do they have? Philippines. They still have the Philippines. Fantastic. And they have a couple of holdings in Africa and off the coast. How have things been going for the Spanish here compared to what they used to have?
Not well.
Things are not going well. They're very much on the decline, but now they have a new monarch. A new monarch who says, I want to test these Americans. I want to test their resolve. Where we find ourselves is a situation where we're looking for an empire, and the Spanish are more than willing to capitulate. Now, the thing is, what we are going to see in the mid to late 1800s is one of these Spanish colonies to start to make some moves. What we're going to see in the late 1800s is that one of these last holdovers, Cuba's going to get very nervous with this new Spanish monarch and what he says he wants to do. Now, just to kind of give you a brief explanation, for really the last 50 plus years, Cuba has had a great deal of autonomy. They've been basically allowed to do what they want to do. They're still the property of Spain, they're still part of the empire, but the Spanish have been very hands-on. Now you have a new monarch saying, I'm going to come back to the West. I'm going to reestablish Spanish dominance. I'm going to make you subservient once again. Cuba's in a difficult spot because Cuba has been controlled by Spain for centuries, but they don't want to be. They're going to find their own small rebellion. Now, Cuba has always been this very interesting island in the United States, as Cuba has a bunch of different things about it. One of these things about Cuba is it's simply just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. It's very nearby. Cuba is so interesting that the United States looks at Cuba and says, you should be a state. You shouldn't be with Spain. You should be with us. Now I just have to ask, because I think this little analogy plays out so well. Do you guys know that guy or girl who just always seems to be dating the wrong person? So you look at me and go, why would you do that? Why are you with this person? I'll tell you this. When I was in high school, I'll always remember Becky. Becky was beautiful. And Becky was always dating these guys. I just thought, Becky, like, they're not good to you. Like, why do you do this, Becky? You should be with someone else. Only there was someone who was so fantastically handsome and charming. And here, shouldn't be with them. With me. Cuba is the same way. Now, I guess I gotta do this too. Do you remember when I told you that story about that girl with the gigantic teddy bear?
Yeah.
Same class. I kid you not, this happened. Same class. There was this one guy in that class. Oh gosh, I cannot remember his name now. Josh. That's what it was. Josh. Josh, and I'll remember her name. I remember this. I couldn't believe this was so dumb. So, like, literally right before class starts, I'm getting everything ready. This was a couple months after I'd done this little analogy. Josh goes up to this girl. I don't remember her name. And he just goes, it's like, so-and-so, you're my Cuba. I was like, oh, don't do it. Oh, this is going to be bad. I can't believe it. And she's looking at it, and at first I thought she'd be like, what? What are you talking about? That's what I would say. Like, and she's like, Josh, that was so sweet. I'm like, what? No, it isn't. I'm like, Josh, like, come here, we gotta talk. That's a horrible line, don't do it. And she's like, that is so great. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, really? And afterwards, like, I remember, because I didn't see them for a couple of days, and they came back. And I remember they left class like holding hands. I'm like, Josh, what? Like, that's horrible. I can't believe that word. Oh well, whatever. Yeah. So in the same class, I had the girl with the giant teddy bear and Josh, and I'm like, what's going on in this class? Like, so my advice, guys, don't use that. Okay? Or maybe do. I don't know. I guess it worked. All right, write that one down. I guess it worked. All right, now a weird tangent here. The United States looks at Cuba in such a way they say, you just simply fit. You have a lot of boxes for us to check off here. Cuba, you simply are perfect for a handful of things. One, not only are you just 90 miles off the American coast, but also your struggle for independence is eerily similar to our own, where we were once colonies. We were controlled by a European power. And now they are asserting their dominance. We need to help you. Now, I need you to think way back. This is all the way back to last year. The United States would have never succeeded in our revolution against the British Empire without some help. Wouldn't have happened. You remember, who comes to our help? Who was our ally against the British? The French. We start thinking by 1898, maybe it's time for us to return the favor. These fledgling colonies trying to break away from a European power, maybe it's time for us to help as well. Now, there's also going to be some other things about Cuba that make it very interesting. Cuba's climate is all but perfect for a fantastic cash crop. Cuba's climate is all but perfect for growing sugar. And by the late 1800s, sugar is big business. Americans have a very serious sweet tooth, and we need sugar. Now, there are some places within the contiguous United States that do have sugar farms, but it's hard, it's tough, it's just a little bit too far north. Cuba's all but perfect, which means this is a business opportunity. We have American companies who have already invested millions and millions of dollars in sugar farms in Cuba. This is a very viable interest for us, and it's going to pay off later on. Now, number 3, we also look at Cuba and say, you would be perfect for the expansion of Manifest Destiny. We have already completed our original definition. By the late 1800s, as we've talked about before, we just need to tweak it. We need to go beyond the Atlantic to Pacific. Cuba's all but a perfect place to bring about democracy and Christianity and civilization, education, technology. It's sitting right off the coast. There's only one problem. What's the problem? Spain is the problem. All we have to do is get rid of Spain, and we have solved the problem. Now we have a new Spanish king who's in power. He sees what's going on, and he understands it. He's not an idiot. He sees that he has a problem in Cuba because we have anti-Spanish sentiment starting to grow more and more. These Cubans are getting very frustrated with a new king trying to reassert his dominance in the West. There's really only one thing the Cubans can do. They're going to start their own revolution. But let's think through this a bit here. Tiny little Cuba, small island in the Caribbean. Can they take on a European power by themselves?
No.
Not going to go well. They do what they should do. They're going to launch their revolution, but they are not nearly strong enough to take on Spain conventionally. You don't do it, because you'll get annihilated. So what they will do is launch their guerrilla war. Now, I need to be certain I highlight something. This right here is guerrilla. But it's not guerrilla like a gorilla, it's guerrilla. It's the way that inferior opponents fight. When you're fighting as guerrillas, there's a very simple way to go about things. You're not fighting like a conventional army. You're not facing off against a superior opponent. Don't do it, because you'll get annihilated. So you have to be patient. You have to bide your time. You have to wait. When your moment comes, when you do have numbers, when you do have the firepower, then you hit real hard and then run away. Refuse to engage a superior opponent. Because if you do stand and fight, you're going to get annihilated. So don't fight their war. Fight your war. These people are not professional soldiers. They're not in the army. Guerrillas are farmers by day and soldiers by night. This is what they should do. Now, the ultimate problem fighting against guerrillas is you never know who the enemy is. These people don't wear uniforms. They don't stand and fight. When they run away, they simply melt back into the population. You never know who you're actually fighting against. It's as if you're fighting against ghosts. Now, there's a way to deal with the problem. The thing about these Cubans, they're pretty good guerrillas. They fight fairly well, but they're not causing enough damage. They're not making it too difficult and too expensive for the Spanish to continue. They need some help. Who do you think they ask for help? The United States. The U.S. says, look, we do want to help you. You have all these characteristics, but we're not going to back a losing effort. Show us you can win, and we'll help you out. Not the answer that the Cubans want. They need to get the Americans involved. So they do something that's a little strange. They are going to deliberately attack these American investments in Cuba. They destroy these American-owned sugar farms in Cuba. Now, like I said, this is kind of strange. So let's connect some dots here. Would it be very wise for these Cuban guerrillas to upset the Americans?
No.
No! This would be a bad idea. So what are the Cubans going to say about why these American investments have been destroyed? Who must it be? You think it's must have been the Spanish.